Hello, this is Max Straker. Just really want to follow on from the last AutoHotkey script which I did, which was I was able to email the report to myself. So it would, after I'd done something, it would go and look at the report file. It would create a report, and it would send it on. I actually had a few issues with that, and I also had some issues with the structure of my scanning with the barcode. For a start, if we just go and look at the new freezer one, I was actually creating new codes for each of the thing. I suddenly thought, why can't I just use a number? So I decided to use a number on that, and so that simplified that. Now there's two ways of doing this. One, I could actually just update all of my freezer stuff, and then I could actually just scan a report. Now, that would be if I was just doing it locally for a small, just one person just doing something for a freezer. If you're actually doing an inventory, somebody else may be actually doing that inventory, and you may be just, managing that inventory, and you may just want that report coming through there. Now, on the method that I actually had before, I had a tablet that I actually ran the report on, and the report was actually stored local. Well, what I decided to do was that I could actually use this FTP class test. So there's actually a file called class FTP, and if you use that one there, you just put in your FTP site. I actually have a virtual private server, a VPS, a virtual private server, and so I can actually, so that it's running 24/7. So if I just copy that file up to there, I can then action that file so that it actually does a task schedule at a particular time each day, and will run on that file. Now, one of the things is if that file doesn't change, in other words, I scanned something, or the file wasn't updated, it's suddenly sending you exactly the same report each time. So I actually had an issue with that. So there was a couple of things that I wanted to do. One of them, I actually wanted to do it now, whereas I wanted a nicely structured report, and so I ended up using some more files to do it, but never mind how at that point of the process, it's in the code itself. If we hit that through there, and if we hit F4, this is now going to go and look at this freezer inventory new text. So it's looking at this file here, and it creates a report. Now, if I go and look at that report, it just suddenly says, if the current date and the date of the file are not the same, then don't bother updating the report, because you've already got the updated report based on another day. So there's no point in double action and things like that. So what you could do is you could actually just generate the report and actually have all of the things and repeat what you actually had before, but say that this was from a previous file, that what you can do. Now, if I just go into that file text one in there, and then I'm just going to change that to 03 and save that one there. Now, if I come in to the other script which I'm doing and just do an F4 on that one, now I'll blast freeze up. No, that's all right. It should actually work now. Now, if I go and look at the report, think about it. And there's the report. So we actually have an updated report, which actually shows the priority ones. So which ones need to be done now, which ones need to be done, the stocks are getting low, so maybe you want to consider those, and which ones are fine, they're all right. Now it's actually saying this is report on that, and it's reading a file of that date. So it's actually acknowledging that it's actually got the same date. Oh, sorry, the file date is that, and today's date is that. So it's just doing a checklist on that to say that it's the latest date, so that's where you're getting the current thing. So when that goes off into an email, you have something to action. Now, the next thing which I've actually got with this, so the other one as well, is that what I also do as well is that I create a backup. So I've actually got a backup report that should have run there, which is done on today's date. So again, what that actually does is that it gives a record. So if you wanted to go back and do an audit on any of the things that you've actually done, you've got an audit on what has actually changed over time as to each one. In fact, you'd actually push it into a database from the point of view of doing it. This is a simplistic way of doing it. But what you can actually do is that it actually just does, because it's overwriting the same file, and we're just using the same file called the report that we're actually attaching to the email and sending off. It isn't a file by date, so therefore we're just keeping a separate file on that report as it's done. So that's a useful thing that you can do. The other thing, so what it means is we can run this process in two different ways. We can run the process of, if we're just doing it at home, we can actually just do all the scanning on the tablet. After we've done all of that, we just scan, run the report, it runs the report, sends an email off, and we actually get an email through there. The second one that we can do is that we run the report on the tablet, we then FTP it, so we copy that file from there up to a server or something that's running 24 hours a day. And so therefore, if we use a task scheduler, we always know that computer is running, so it's always going to send that email at the same time each day. Now, if nothing's changed on the file, all it says is that there's no change to this report. If it has changed, it actually tells you what's done. So you basically action what's in the report. The next thing which I actually have a bit of an issue with, which I'm just researching at this point in time, is trying to do some aesthetics with the file. And the only way that I can do it is that you can put markup language into it, but unless you've got a markup reader, it's just going to read as just a whole load of markup. Well, it is going to read like simple markup. So I think I'm going to actually have to start simplifying it so it looks, elaborating by putting HTML tags in there and saving it as an HTML file. Therefore, it stands out a little bit more specifically. Or I'm wondering whether I can actually put it into the body of an email rather than as an attachment, and that's another method to do. So that's just something that I'm just thinking at this point in time. There's a couple of items on that, because I do find that AutoHotkey text just looks a bit 70s, really. It's just looking like code editor stuff, and you really want something a little bit more juiced up from the point of view of how it's being presented. So the only little tricky thing of one thing which I actually learnt on that one there was that it actually goes through and gets the file get time. So it actually goes into the file that you've actually got, which is the freezer inventory file, and it goes and finds the date and the time of that file. And so therefore you can compare that with the current date to see that it's the most up-to-date. And if it isn't the up-to-date one, then you're just suddenly saying there's nothing else to report. All I've got is an old file that I'm comparing against. So if something has changed, I'm reading the wrong file. So it flags a warning as if somebody tells you, well, we actually just updated the inventory, but that hasn't FTP'd across to another site. I just suddenly wanted to get a little bit of a couple of variations on that, and I'm quite pleased with what I've done. So I will post this code through there. The FPT stuff was interesting, but once I actually found the right code to do it, and it actually has this class, you don't actually need to do make a new instance of the class on that one. It's happy not to do it. But it just goes and finds that file and copies it across onto my server. So these are the bits of information that you need to put in there. The where your server is, what your loggings are, and then which file you're taking. So this one here, I'm actually using the record file, so I'd actually just give that information there and copy that there, and then a name for what it's called at the other end. So once it's on that server, and there I'd most probably, it doesn't seem to like the percentage stuff if it's in the brackets, so I'd most probably have to put whatever my username is in there for it to actually work correctly. and then what you want to name the file at the other end, so it can be whatever you actually want it to, and it's just going to override itself every time it does this FTP. So all you'd actually do is, if you're doing the scanning, you just run this FTP file, which will flick it up to the server. So that's all you do. And because you want to do that, because you might be updating a whole lot of things on your inventory, and it's only at the very end. And since we're just cycling through and just doing an update each time and then closing down that file, that script, and then opening it up, running it again, we really need to just run another script at the end, which just sends that file up via FTP. There might be a way of adding it onto the end of another one if it actually says so. It actually asks if you want to do in the script for updating your inventory, you kind of update, so it keeps it open, it just cycles around and actually says, do you want to do another update through there? You could say, yes, I do, or no, I don't. So that would be something. So you could then incorporate this into the file, so at the end of the thing, it would just do it. So as long as you have this, and as long as you include your class FTP file somewhere else, you're good to go on those sorts of things. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, please give a thumbs up. If not, don't worry about it.